Hi guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to my first official video. Today we're going through all of my best reads of 2024. It was very difficult picking only 10 books and also difficult to put them in order, but I managed to do that, and I'll be going through them in order. So I'll start with my 10th place, my 10th book, and we'll go all the way to my first one, so we'll have some mystery of my favorite book of the year. Unfortunately though, I don't have the books here with me. I just moved to Canada from Ireland and I left some of my books there. I shipped some of them, I posted some of them, but they still haven't arrived in Canada. I'm very upset about that. It's probably because of the strike. The strike is over now, so hopefully I'll get them soon. Yeah, so just let's get down to business. Get your cozy warm tea or coffee or whatever you like to drink, and let's get started. All right, then let's start with my 10th favorite book of the year. So this book was actually a surprise, and the author herself was a surprise. I didn't know her, I had no plans of reading her, but we lived in Phibsborough for the last 6 months that we were living in Dublin. And favorite neighborhood in Dublin, if you ever go to Dublin, go to Phibsborough, it's amazing. But she was actually born there. She moved to England when she was a baby, so she's Irish, British or British Irish, but we still have photographs of her in the library. And then in front of the library you have this kind of, it's a lake, kind of like a park, and you have the house where she was born in, so it's a big deal. And she is also a big deal. So her name is Iris Murdoch, and the book, it's The Flight from the Enchanter. This book was weird, I have to say, very different from everything that I've ever read before. And I tell everyone, even if you don't like the style, even if you didn't like the, you know, the synopsis of the book or the blurb, I don't know, if you didn't like the story, sometimes it's worth reading a book just for the writing, because sometimes it's magical. And with Iris Murdoch, for sure, it's magical. Here we follow a group of people who are connected, linked by one person, who is this guy called Misha Fox. We don't know where he's from. The story is set in London. We don't know if he's foreign or not. We know that he's very wealthy, very weird, and that he has this power over people and he manipulates people, and everyone in the book is kind of connected to him somehow. So here we have so many elements. So we have fantastical elements, kind of surrealism, but I would say fantastical probably more. And surrealism is sort of like a dream like situation where you don't know if you're dreaming or having a nightmare, or even I don't know, it's just very weird, but it's amazing. And you have even some mystery at some point. It's a bit scary sometimes. It's like not horror, but it does have some elements that could be, you know, perceived as something kind of spooky. But it's amazing. This book was published in 1956 and it's a must read. I want to read The Sea and the Sea by her. I've heard that it's the best one. Gabrielle's favorite is The Sea and the Sea, so that's it. The Flight from the Enchanter by Iris Murdoch. So the 9th book is a book that I have here with me. I actually just finished this book. It'll be my last read of 2024. I'm recording this video, I believe, on the 30th of or 29th of December, so I won't be reading or finishing any more books this year. And I almost put it in higher up on the list, 8th or 7th place, but you know, just revisiting all of my reads, I was like, no, calm down. It's okay, this one can be in 9th place. So I'm talking about Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Oh my goodness, what an amazing read. Honestly, here as many of you probably know, read this before, we follow Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer's best bud, in his own adventure. And no, I have never read Tom Sawyer. However, I will this year. So we can talk about this book as well later in the year. But I really liked it. It's really good. I like the writing. I think it's honestly an amazing writing, and I wasn't really expecting anything like so much from it because Gabriel doesn't like this book, so he told me, "Look, you can read it, but I don't like it." But I ended up loving it. It's obviously full of difficult things and situations and themes, and the social criticism is really strong here. It's set in the Mississippi River, so in the South, in Missouri, and we follow Huck escaping his father and an abusive home, and forging his own death to escape this, and also having a friend, how can I say this, well, a friend, yeah, father figure even, who is Jim, his tutor's slave. So he also escapes to try to be with his family, and obviously he escapes slavery, or is trying to escape slavery. So we see this bond between them and this friendship emerging, and all of the adventures that they go through. And it's such a beautiful book, and of course it's hard to read. There are some passages here that I found it extremely difficult to digest, but I think that the message of friendship between them, and just love, is amazing, and it's worth it. One thing though, I didn't like Tom Sawyer in this book. It's, I don't know, very manipulative, and not in a good way, and I didn't think it was that funny. Some people say that Tom Sawyer is better and it's funnier, and anyway, people like it better, but I don't know. Let's see. I really like this, and I didn't like Tom in this book. Okie dokie. So 8th place. This one was a read, also difficult read, not because of the writing per se, but more because of well, the same elements and the same situations from the book that I just mentioned, Huck Finn, which was Light in August by William Faulkner. So this was my first contact with Faulkner, and here we have, it's set in the South. It's set in Mississippi during the Jim Crow laws and the Prohibition, at the end of the Prohibition. So it's a very difficult, kind of dense and intense book to read. So it was difficult for the same reasons as Huck Finn, but the story is very interesting. We follow a pregnant girl. What was her name again? I think was it Lucy? No, Lena Grove. We follow her, who's pregnant, not married, and trying to find her baby's father. And then she basically travels a long way, just walking with her big baby bump, and it's very sad. And we also follow Joe Christmas, who is a man who looks white, but he believes that that he's mixed. He doesn't have any answers because he was adopted. So we also follow him and his struggles. And there's a Reverend Hightower, who's also important here in the book, and we follow him. So everything kind of happens revolving this fire that happens in the town where it's set, Jefferson. And we followed these three storylines, and at the end everything kind of connects. So it is a beautiful book. amazing writing, amazing book, but very difficult as well. And it's very heavy, very Southern Gothic, but which is actually a theme here on this list, but it's totally worth it. Well, the seventh one, it's actually also a very difficult book. And by the way, guys, none of these are rereads. I read them for the first time this year, so most of them are classics. But this one is also very, very difficult. But it was an amazing read as well. So I'm talking about The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. And it was my first contact with Steinbeck, same way with Faulkner and Mark Twain and Iris Murdoch. I never read anything of his before. I know most people like East of Eden better. I don't know if My Scent Man, but East of Eden. But I already, like, I'm so shocked by his writing from The Grapes of Wrath that I don't know if I'm ready for East of Eden, maybe later in the year. But what a read. It was very intense as well, very heavy as well. Here we follow a family going from Oklahoma to California to pursue the Californian dream. And it's very sad because it's during the Dust Bowl and during the Great Depression, and they're escaping poverty and total wretchedness. They have nothing. The banks are taking away all of the land, so they don't even have their lands anymore. And even if they, did, they wouldn't be able to plant anything and harvest because of the Dust Bowl. And anyway, the economical problems and issues of that time. But it's honestly an amazing book. It's very hard to swallow. So this family ends up losing a lot of its members in this journey, and it's very sad, but it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's full of biblical passages as well, and I just found it very, very delicate in some ways. But yeah, so amazing book. If you have not read The Grapes of Wrath, please do. It's honestly amazing. It's a lot of suffering, but there's hope as well. So the sixth book of the list then is an amazing book, an amazing author. It honestly was such a good, it wasn't even a find, it was Gabrielle as well who told me about him. He told me about him, I believe 2 years ago when we first met. He was already talking about Raymond Carver, and this book specifically is his favorite book of his. And I'm talking about What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. What a book. Is a collection of short stories. He focuses mostly on the working class. It's very blue collar, and it's like, people who live paycheck to paycheck, and their struggles, their daily struggles, and everything that they have to, go through every single day in order to survive. It's very minimalistic, and I heard someone say something about Raymond Carver, say, oh, he wasn't really minimalistic because his editor used to cut so much from his writings that people say that he's minimalistic because his books are short and his short stories are short. But it's not really the case. But I don't agree with that. I think he was very minimalistic. It was like he had his own language. He had his own style. And he is, he doesn't overdo. He is very to the point, but it's like nothing is out of place with his writing. Nothing is too much and nothing is too little. It's just perfect, and that's why I think I can call it minimalistic. It's an amazing, amazing way of telling stories, and it feels so, so true. It's like you're actually following these people. It's like actually you opened a window, and then, this life had been happening before you opened the window, but then you open the window and you see that stretch, that part of it, and then it closes again. And that's what it's like to me reading his short stories. I wrote down my favorite ones and the ones that kind of traumatized me a bit. So my favorite ones were Everything Stuck to Him, which is an amazing, amazing short story. The other one was What We Talk About When We Talk About Love. I think it's the one, you know, it's probably the most important one. The ones that were traumatizing but very good were Tell the Women We're Going and So Much Water, So Close to Home. Just read Raymond Carver, specifically this book of short stories, and you won't regret it. All right, so 5th place, we have another book that took my breath away, and it was also my first contact with this writer. So I'm talking about The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. What a book. Honestly, this one made me cry so much, and it was just so beautiful. Very difficult as well, so we have problems here, like just situations. It's difficult to read some parts of it. We follow a man named John Singer, and he is deaf mute, and he has a best friend, Antonopoulos, who is also deaf mute, and they live together and they do everything together. They're best friends. Their friendship is very interesting. You'll understand when you read it, but it's very interesting, and they're just, you know, it's a very innocent, and unfortunately Antonopoulos needs to be put away, and, you know, needs to be brought to a facility because he can't no longer live in society. He is, you know, having problems with his mental health, and that basically the book is John Singer struggling, and not really struggling, but dealing with that, with taking care of his friend who is in this facility. But also the other characters in the book are all connected to John because they all come to see him and talk to him about his struggles, and he smiles and treats them very kindly and is very sweet with them. And it's just an amazing book, I have to say. So beautiful. If you want to, you know, read an amazing classic and cry, go with The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. It's just incredible. So the 4th book is by an author whom I love, and I've always loved her, but I had never read this one before, which is crazy because I think it turned out to be my favorite one. Well, at least so far. But I'm talking about Jane Austen, and the book is Persuasion. So I've read Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, and I love them so much, but this one is just so special. It deals with things, with just things that we deal with every day, regret and not being brave enough to do something and go after your dreams, go after what you want. And it's just it's a very powerful book. So here we follow Anne Elliot, who is in love with the man Wentworth, called Wentworth, and they are engaged, but she is you know, manipulated or persuaded to end their engagement because he is not good enough for her, apparently. And she does that, but she suffers so much, and she suffers for years and years. I believe it's 7 years without him, and in a position where she, you know, couldn't find anyone else and didn't want anyone else, and she's struggling with that. So he comes back to her life for a specific reason, and she has to deal with that regret and also with the fact that she can't be with him. You know, they're over. She made a choice, and it's just something that I feel like everyone kind of struggles with, regrets, and you know, it's a very powerful book, and I really liked it. I think it's very mature, and it's apparently the most autobiographical one. I don't know if that's true, but people, you know, say that. All right, so that was the 4th one. The 3rd place was a book that was amazing. Honestly, you guys, I want to read it again. I want actually no, I have to continue the trilogy because it is a trilogy, but I only read one. I only read the first one. So I'm talking about All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. Oh my goodness, by Cormac McCarthy. I have only other than this one, I've only read Blood Meridian. Wait, oh my gosh, I can't talk. So Blood Meridian, and it's an amazing book, but a bit too, you know, bloody for me. It was very intense and very like kind of like, this is what it's about, violence and blood. It's amazing, but I feel like All the Pretty Horses has a beauty to it that I can't really compare to his other book. Here we follow a guy, not a guy, like a teenager. I think he's 17. John Grady Cole. Oh my gosh, can't talk. John Grady Cole, and he decides to leave Texas after his family sells his grandfather's ranch, which was a ranch where he lived in or on, and he wants to live as a cowboy. That's all he knows. But his mom decides to sell the ranch, so he decides then to go to Mexico with his best bud, Lacey, and they will get into all sorts of trouble, but like not like Hook and Tom Sawyer and Jim, like actual trouble, like really bad. Well, the other, anyway, but it's like intense, very Cormac McCarthy, very bloody as well, but not as bloody as Blood Meridian. But amazing book. If you've never read All the Pretty Horses, do so. You won't regret it. It's amazing, and I want to read the other two that my dad read and said are amazing. Well, second place, and this was very, very difficult because I almost put the second place in first place and vice versa, but I decided to, you know, do this and chose Demons by Dostoevsky as my second favorite of the year. So one thing you have to know about me is that I love Dostoevsky. He's probably my favorite author of all time, and I've read most of his works, and I do this project that I read everything that he's ever written in chronological order, and I also read his biography that is right here while I read, you know, everything he's ever written, basically. Short stories, novels, novellas, everything. And I am obsessed with Dostoevsky, so it's very difficult for me to not put one of his books in first place, but that's okay. I'm happy with my decision, and you'll see when you see the first place. But Demons is honestly, it just shows, it's a book that shows the, you know, catastrophic consequences of nihilism in Russia, and you know, it was very popular, it was prevailing in Russia at the time. And Dostoevsky, throughout his entire, you know, life, and most of his life at least, and works, he likes to, you know, show, and what's the word that I can use, expose ideas for what they truly are. And here he decided to write this book because of what happened to a group of students who were, you know, they were socialist, nihilistic, whatever you want to call it. And this crime happened in 1869. They ended up killing one of their former colleagues, student as well, because he decided not to be a part of the group anymore. So they thought that, you know, they had a lot to lose if this guy just ran loose. So they decided to kill him. And this book is about that, basically. So he wrote a masterpiece. It's one of the best things I've ever read in my life. And like I said, I've read most of his works, and Brothers Karamazov as well. That is my favorite book of all time. But yeah, this book is just amazing, and if you've never read Demons, go for it. don't fall into the trap that Russian writers are too difficult, because it's not true. And you see, if you just pick it up and read it, it's worth it. And it's very intense, but it's also funny at times. Dostoevsky is very funny. And pick it up, you won't regret it. So now it's the moment of truth. I'm so happy to tell you my favorite book of the year. Top everything. Was almost second because of Demons, but that's okay. It was my favorite book of the year, and I'm talking about this amazing novel called The Violent Buried Away by Flannery O'Connor. I told you the theme this year was Southern Gothic, and you know, this is exactly what it is. Honestly, Flannery O'Connor is just amazing. It was my first contact with her, any of her works. Oh my gosh. Okay, it was just a little scratch, but it's fine. Like I said, this was my first contact with Flannery O'Connor, and oh my goodness, it's just incredible. There's not a lot to say except that this was my favorite book of the year, and her writing is amazing. It's very psychological, you know. She plays a lot with her faith. She was a Catholic, and she you know, writes not playing with characters, but you know, working with their psychological dramas, or you know, how they perceive the world, how they perceive themselves. And it's just phenomenal. I want to read everything she's ever written, you know, she ever wrote, because she has passed away. But she was a devout Catholic, and very keen to write about her faith, but in a way that it's mostly about characters, and not about the faith as a whole, but she works with their psychological struggles and everything, and how they, you know, basically see the world. Here we follow a kid called Francis Tarwater, and he was raised by his great-grandfather, who believed he was a prophet. So he actually raises Francis to believe that he himself is a prophet, and that he himself needs to baptize his cousin. So his cousin Rayber was kidnapped by the great-grandfather years before he was born, and then he was brought back to his house. So Rayber is traumatized by his great-grandfather, who was his grandfather actually, and all of the prophet talk, and you know, the fundamentalist type of religion, and he is traumatized by that. He has a son named Bishop, and we don't know what he has, but we know, some people say that he has Down syndrome, but he's a special kid, and he's my favorite character in the whole book. Bishop is amazing. Just so sweet. And it's a very sad book. So basically, this Rayber guy, he's a psychologist, and he is against religion because of, you know, his uncle, and he thinks it's just all gibberish. So he raises his kid, and doesn't want his kid to be baptized. And then the grandfather, who is Mason Tarwater, tries to baptize the kid, and before he dies, he tells Francis, you need to baptize Bishop. And that's basically what he tries to do during the book. And a lot of things happen, but honestly, this is amazing. This was one of the best books I've read in my life, not only this year of 2024, and it's just so worth it. Yeah, honestly, if you have it, you know, just lying around in your house, just pick it up and you won't regret it. I hope. Anyways, so that was it. I have two honorable mentions. So I really liked reading Pedro Paramo, but I believe that I need to read it again. It wasn't a great book, but it was a bit too of the surrealism like elements involved in it for me. Honestly, I don't really think that I got everything that I was supposed to in that reading. And I really liked this book by this author named Jennifer Saint called Electra. So I also read Electra from Euripides, and it was an incredible read, also honorable mention here, but this book specifically was just very interesting, and I liked the way that the author plays with all of the three characters. So it was a really good book as well. So yeah, I have Electra from by Euripides, and by Sophocles as well, that I read. Two very good books, and then after reading those two, you can read Electra by Jennifer Saint, or the other way around. And yeah, Pedro Paramo, which was really good as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.